James West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Hey, what do you say, everybody? Good to see you. Thursday, November 19. Welcome to the Bill Press Show. We are here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. We're right here in our studio on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building, about 5 metro stops away from the White House. And we will bring you up to date on all the news of the day, the big news for the day, mostly coming out of the Philippines, where President Obama attending the APEC summit there. His second day in the Philippines goes on from there to Malaysia. He held his first meeting with the new Prime Minister Trudeau from Canada, and also had meetings, of course, dealing with climate change, with trade, and made a big announcement granting billions of dollars in military support for new naval equipment for the Philippines as kind of a counterbalance to China in the Pacific. Meanwhile, back here at home, anti-refugee hysteria still sweeping the country. Even Democratic soon-to-be Senate leader Chuck Schumer has come out saying we ought to have a pause in letting Syrian refugees into this country. But meanwhile, Mike Huckabee and Jeb Bush and Ted Cruz are getting some pushback from evangelicals saying when you say we should only allow Christians and no Muslims in this country, you are giving all Christians a bad name. Doesn't mean they'll change their tune, but they are getting some criticism for that. Up in New Hampshire, Donald Trump now with a 10-point lead over Ben Carson, increasing his standing in the nation's first primary. And today is the day that Bernie Sanders goes to Georgetown University and gives that long-awaited speech on exactly what does it mean to be a democratic socialist. All right, so much to talk about today. You're going to want to chime in. We know it. You know how to do it. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS, this Thursday edition of The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where the ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad, as a friend, as a husband,
As a wife.
as an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday.
It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Donald Trump up 10 points over Ben Carson in New Hampshire. The uglier he gets, the more support he gets. Yeah, go figure that. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Thursday, November 19. Welcome to this special Thursday edition of the Bill Press Show. You got it. You know where we are, right here in our nation's capital. And our studio on Capitol Hill, perfectly located to bring you up to date on the news of the day, because we're just down the street from the United States Capitol building, and we're just about 5 or 6 metro stops away. I take it every day and I never count the stops, but it's a quick shot down to the White House from here on the metro. We're right in the middle of the action here, and bringing you up to date on what's happening, the news of the day, as we do every day. Whether it's coming from Manila, or whether it's coming from Paris, whether it's coming from Syria, or here in Washington, or anywhere else on the globe. We'll tell you what's going on. We look forward to hearing from you about the news of the day. You keep up with it. You've got your comments about it. Let us know what it all means to you. 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number. Or you find us on Twitter at BP Show, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. You all be pleased to know that thanks to your encouragement yesterday, Carol and I did not cancel our planned trip to Madrid. We did not call the airlines. We did not. We still plan on taking off.
I think that's the right thing.
We're going to show them they can't stop us. We are not afraid. Here we are. Good to see you today again. Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson checking in. Hello, hello.
Here we are, Bill.
Good morning. With Ray Rogers on the job. Team has been here. We've had the team together for, after the summer when you couldn't find everybody in the same place one time. Right. We had a good fall here.
Yeah.
And Cyprian Bolding.
Even Cyprian Bolding showed up.
What's happening, baby?
What's happening, baby?
We got it. Oh, man. Where do we start today? I think, Thanksgiving, right? I do, and it's my favorite holiday.
Me too.
It's just that I've learned that it's a good time to escape the country. So, right.
Oh, there's those damn Thanksgiving turkeys.
No, are they around the
those
studio
damn
again?
Thanksgiving turkeys, man. Every year.
No, we can't. Come on.
They're those damn turkeys. Every year, this time of year, I don't know what happens.
Come on, Ray, get those turkeys out of here.
Those turkeys get loose, man. There they go. There he goes.
Right. Well, for this Thanksgiving, it's not just the turkeys that you need, but how about Patti LaBelle's sweet potato pie?
Gotta have a good pie.
Heard about this? She's got Patti LaBelle's come out with a sweet potato pie in Walmart. There's a problem. They can't keep them on the shelf.
Is that right?
Yeah, they are flying off the shelf one pie every second, Walmart says.
Oh, my God.
They can't make them fast enough, and it's all because this guy, James Wright, whom I never heard of, he's a singer, sort of an amateur singer, and he does a little blog, and sometimes he does food reviews of things that he really likes. He bought himself a Patti LaBelle pie, put this up online, and they are flocking to the stores to buy them.
I went and bought the Patti LaBelle pie. Sweet potato Patti LaBelle. This is the Patti edition, honey. This is the on my own. Why did it end this way? Ooh, Patty's so moist. Come on, Patty. Patty. I want to taste Patty live. And... Whoa, yeah. Bitch, I turned into Patty. You turned into Patty after eating this.
There he is, man. Put that up.
He's a hell of a singer, by the way. He really hit those Patti LaBelle notes.
Patty contacted him, by the way.
Did she really? Good for Patty.
Complimented on his singing voice.
Yeah, he's a good singer. Good for Patty.
Yeah. And there, if you see the long lines outside the Walmart stores, and those people, long lines walking out with the pie.
With the pie.
Thanks to James
Thanks
Wright.
to James, man.
She had to give him a little cut on every pie.
Yeah, right?
Don't you think?
Now I got to try one of these Patti LaBelle pies.
I know.
I like a sweet potato pie.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Patty pies.
No, I do too.
Patty pies.
Bring it in. All right, 11 minutes after the hour. Got a lot going on. Rebecca Sinderbrand from the Washington Post will join us later in this hour. Jordan Fabian from The Hill will be here. Covers the White House for The Hill. He'll be here in studio with us. And we're also going to talk to the head of a great organization called World Relief that has been working for years and years and years to help refugees. And they are not happy with the anti-refugee rhetoric we're hearing today from so many Republican candidates and Republicans and some Democrats, sadly, on Capitol Hill. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news while we're talking about singers, right? We finally solved one of the biggest mysteries in all of music. You're So Vain, you probably think this song is about you, was written about someone from Carly Simon's past, and for 44 years she's managed to keep it a secret. But she has a new memoir called Boys in the Trees, and she tells us who that song is about.
Oh my God, yes, and?
It's about Warren Beatty. Warren Beatty is the subject of the song You're So Vain. Now, she does say that not the entire song is about him, but there's a very specific reference to him. You had me several years ago when I was still quite naive. Well, you said that we made such a pretty pair and that you would never leave, but you gave away the things you loved, and one of them was me. I had some dreams. There were clouds in my coffee, and You're So Vain is about Warren Beatty.
Wow.
Finally, the secret's out, right? It's been one of the best kept secrets in all of music.
That kind of fits.
It makes sense. Yeah. everything we've heard. But I'm glad the secret's out now. After the attacks in France, the hacktivist group Anonymous vowed that they were going to go and take down ISIS, right? Anonymous was going to work behind the scenes and take down all of these different dark websites that ISIS used to communicate, right? Which seemed like a stretch. However, there's a new update here that says that they have taken down over 3,800 different Twitter accounts linked to various ISIS members and associates, and they said they're just getting started. They want to find some of the other websites that they use to communicate that aren't necessarily on the grid and take them down. Yeah. So good for Anonymous. Usually they're going after other people, but they're going after the bad guys this time. So good for them. And I mentioned yesterday the first the most extensive facial transplant in history took place. Here's some more crazy news. Scientists have grown human vocal cords in a lab for the very first time. Now, this has never been done before, but they say that sometimes people have like major damage to their vocal cords through either illnesses or damage to any kind of contact, right? But this has been done at the University of Wisconsin Medical School. They're growing vocal cords that actually work and can make people talk again if they've been damaged. Amazing. It really is amazing. The problem is that the vocal cords in the past, right, the vocal cords are active the way that they open and close and allow you to do this, so it's hard to replicate that and grow new ones. But they've done it, damn it, so it's a whole new world.
Maybe these singers like Adele won't have to take months and years off.
That's right. That's right, if they have a vocal cord injury.
You know, it's just it's hard to comprehend where this is heading, right? Where this is going.
It certainly is.
I mean, Frankenstein. They're going to be creating and building just whole people with all these different body parts they're able to replicate.
Yeah.
The robots will take over.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, here at the top of the hour, I want to go back to the question that we've been dwelling on a lot this week. but a little different angle of it about the whole refugee crisis. I mean, we've seen such hysteria, such just worldwide, but not worldwide maybe, but certainly here in the United States. Let's just focus on that. Hysteria over the rumor, right, that turned out not to be true, that one of the suicide bombers in Paris, the guy at the stadium, who blew himself up, had a Syrian passport. Therefore, immediately jumping to the conclusion that he was in a train of refugees that walked across Eastern Europe to get to Western Europe and then to join this gang and take part in these deadly attacks in Paris. Well, it turned out it wasn't true. It was a fake passport, so we don't really know where he came from. We don't know how he got into France. We don't know if he is the same person that got in through Greece. We don't know whether he came from Syria or could have come from Egypt or Tunisia or Libya. Who knows? But just based on that false rumor, right? This is hysteria in this country. Either we have to ban all Syrian refugees from coming here, or put a pause on Syrian refugees who are coming here. And they wrap this, in like national security. Paul Ryan is introducing legislation today to say, time out, no more refugees. Here's Paul Ryan. Here's why we have to do it.
We also must remember that our first priority is to protect the American people. We can be compassionate, and we can also be safe.
Yeah, it's just such phony, transparent racism and xenophobia. What it is. I mean, to me, the idea that over the last few years, we've taken in like roughly 2,000 Syrian refugees, while there are 11 million who have fled Syria because they're caught in the middle of this civil war and their survival, their very survival is at stake. And these people gather up their kids and put themselves through incredible suffering to try to get a better life for their families. We've only taken 2,000. President Obama says next year maybe we'll take in 10,000. Again, out of 11 million, 10,000. I think the question is not why should we take any at all. The question is why are we taking so few? So Paul Ryan gives that lip service. But he says, we're not like Ben Carson. We're not going to have any religious test.
We will not have a religious test, only a security test. If the intelligence and law enforcement community cannot certify that a person presents no threat, then they should not be allowed in.
And again, what he's not being honest about is we have the toughest test today. We've got the toughest net or sieve or filter or whatever you want for refugees from Syria coming into this country today. It's an 18-month process. Rigorous in-person screening process over and over every element of their background. No other country does that. Paul Ryan's not just being honest about this because he's playing to the crowd, right? Thank God there are a couple of people, in addition to the president, who have some sense about this. Governor Daniel Malloy from Connecticut says, "Look, let's be honest. We're Americans. We have to do our part."
It is the right thing to do for us to respond to this tragedy that's playing itself out. We have an obligation to the other nations of the world to do our part.
That's all. Let's just do our part. So you've got that whole deal we've talked a little bit about. But there's another aspect of this which I think is really disgusting, and that is the relationship, if you will, or the contrast between the response to the refugee crisis and the terrorist attacks in Paris and gun violence in this country. And I see it on two fronts. First of all, background checks. All this talk about we have to have a pause, Mitch McConnell, everybody was saying, we have to have a pause, we have to have a timeout, because we have to make sure we have a background check. 18 months is not enough. What do you want? 5 years, right, or something. For everybody, every one Syrian refugee, including 3-year-old orphans who come into this country. And yet the very, very, very same people don't want any background check at all for anybody buying a gun in the United States. Did you see the total hypocrisy of that, the total double standard of that? They're the very same people who oppose closing the background check loopholes or requiring a tough background check or giving the federal government enough time to really check people out so that these crazies cannot walk in and walk out with a gun. Yeah, they don't want nothing to do with that. That's too much government. That's government over. And yet, right, they want us to go overboard for Syrian refugees, number one. And number two, all this response, yeah, it was horrific, the 129 people mowed down, innocent people mowed down in Paris. We all agree on that. But, what about the 289 people that are mowed down by guns in this country every day? The same people who say, oh my God, this is so bad, we've got to send ground troops to Syria in response to what happened in Paris. And you've got 22 first graders in Connecticut mowed down in their little school, in their little classroom.
Oh, we don't want to act too quickly on that.
Oh, let's not do anything on that. Or you got, I don't know how many people killed in Aurora, Colorado, or at Virginia Tech, or all these mass shootings, or last week or a few weeks ago in Roseburg, Oregon. No. We don't want to need to do anything about that. The Brady campaign, I was just checking last night. Get this, between 2000 and 2010 in this country, 335,609 people died from gun violence. That is bigger than the population of St. Louis, bigger than the population of Pittsburgh, bigger than the population of Orlando, Florida. All three of those cities, any one of them, totally wiped out between 2000 and 2010. Did you see any demand for action, any call for action on the part of these people who are now, sending in the U.S. military against ISIS in response to what happened in Paris? It's a total double standard. Yes. Tell me what you think about this. Maybe I'm wrong. But here's what I believe. 866-55-PRESS. I believe that the people who are gunned down in the concert hall in Paris deserve our attention and deserve action. But so do the people who are gunned down every day on the streets of America. 866-55-PRESS. Let's get our priorities straight.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan. Thank you. And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you. Oh, man. Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour. It is frightening when you look at the statistics for gun violence in this country. For the most part, kept by the Brady campaign to end gun violence. Every day, 289 Americans shot in this country, of whom 86 die. 30 of them are murdered, and we know disproportionately they are young African Americans that we never hear their names, never know about them in the cities of America, and no demand for action about that. I mean, every day, according to the Center for Disease Control, they also keep a record of these statistics. In 2000, I mentioned every day 289 shot, but according to the CDC, in 2013. There were 11,208 deaths by homicide in this country. Now, it sort of puts what happened in Paris in perspective. Again, terrorism, evil, horrible. We got to know it's there. It's not going away. We got to be fighting with every way we can. But we also got to do something about gun violence in the country, and you can't put all your attention in one and ignore the other.
There are more armed, mentally ill, and or evil people in this country than there are terrorists, jihadi terrorists in the world.
I mean, I think it's not too hard. We have our own ISIS. We have our own ISIS inside the United States of America, and doing nothing about it, and people don't seem to care about it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is, that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen? I forgive the police. We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers, but I'll stay radical. Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too. But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together. I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too. Amen. Earth-alleluia.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go now. 33 minutes after the hour, it is The Bill Press Show. Here we are in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Booming out to you coast to coast on the radio and on television. And we're brought to you today by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. We all live better because of the good work of the men and women of the Teamsters Union under President Jim Hoffa. Out there building a bipartisan coalition between labor leaders and business leaders to get Congress off the dime to do something about our crumbling infrastructure in this country. Find out more about their good work at teamster.org. We talked about the irrational, hysteric response to the refugee crisis on the part particularly of Republican politicians, both on the campaign trail and in the Congress. Sadly, one leading Democrat, Chuck Schumer, my prediction, and you've heard it before, is that Chuck Schumer is going to be a freaking disaster as Senate Majority Leader. He should never have the job. Remember, this is the guy, the putative new Democratic leader of the Senate, who came out and opposed President Obama on the Iran nuclear deal. And now Senator Schumer is saying, yeah, he's open to a pause. I mean, this man is a Jew, right? He should know better in terms of discrimination against one people just because of where they came from or what their faith is or what their race is for any reason whatsoever. And Schumer has joined the racist voices about demanding a pause in the refugee crisis. And by the way, I just was noticed during the break, the American people catching on this. we always do this, right? Yeah, World War II, we didn't want to let any people who were fleeing the Holocaust into this country. After the Cold War, we didn't want to let any people who were fleeing communism into this country. It's always, and Fox News just had a poll. 53% in their poll of 53% of the American people say no Syrian refugees whatsoever, none. Of course, that is a poll on Fox News. Maybe you account for where it came from. Let's go back to and then this big difference between the way the conservatives and those on the right are talking about response to the terrorist attacks in Paris and how they completely don't want to talk about doing anything about gun violence in this country. Again, I repeat, yes, the victims of terrorism are worth our attention, but so are the victims of gun violence in the streets of America every single day. Chandler is out in Palm Springs, California. Hi, Chandler.
Hi, Bill. Listen, you're absolutely right about everything as usual, but also let's add to that. There's no test. Paul Ryan and these self-serving Republicans predominantly, they know there's no test to determine potential, who's going to commit a crime, who's going to be a terrorist. The terrorists, from everything we've seen, are radicalized citizens from all over the world. This doesn't make any sense, and they've got to know this.
You would think, and we're going to have the president of this organization, World Relief, on in the next hour. I mean, the numbers they have put out in all the hundreds of thousands of refugees, I guess millions, right, whom they've helped come to this country from all over the world, not one of them in this country, not one of them has been accused of any act of terrorism in all that time, in years and years and years. And so this is all based on hysteria and rumor and speculation and pure political motivation. Yeah. None of it, not based on facts at all. Hey, thanks, Chandler. I love Palm Springs. I haven't been out there in too long. Rose from Ligonier, Indiana. Hey, Rose, what's up?
Hi, morning. My comment just is this. They don't have the right lobbyist in Washington. And besides, the terrorists bought their guns from the wrong competitors.
Oh, yeah. There are, well, we're going to talk to a reporter from the Daily News, Peter, of that article yesterday.
Yeah, about how many terrorists or potential terrorists are legally buying guns, right, because of the loopholes that we have here in this country. And the NRA is fighting to keep those loopholes wide open.
Yeah, so we'll hear more about that a little bit later in the program, Rose. I appreciate your raising the point here. There's one other aspect of this whole refugee crisis you probably have heard about, and some of our callers have said, why aren't you talking about this? And that is that some people believe, John Kerry overstepped or went too far or goofed in some comments that he made about what happened in Paris. In relation to Charlie Hebdo. All right, so first of all, let's hear, this is the original comments, again, that got John Kerry in a little bit of hot water with some right-wingers. Here he is.
There's something different about what happened from Charlie Hebdo, and I think everybody would feel that. There was a sort of particularized focus and perhaps even a legitimacy in terms of not a legitimacy, but a rationale that you could attach yourself to somehow and say, okay, they're really angry because of this or that.
Legitimacy certainly was a word he shouldn't have used, and he immediately corrected himself. But just those comments that you would understand why they would attack Charlie Hebdo and not this restaurant or not the concert hall got such a reaction from, among others, Chris Christie.
He needs to get some sleep and shut up. Is what he needs. That's disgraceful. For the Secretary of State of the United States to stand up and say that there's some rationale for what happened in January, these are the kind of weak, mixed signals that this administration sends that helps to really, make the American people think that there's no one watching the store.
Right. Chris Christie ought to know better, too. Look, let me ask you, Did Kerry misspeak, or did he belittle? Was he trying to belittle what happened in Paris? 866-55-PRESS. I got to tell you, I understand exactly what John Kerry was saying, and I think he is absolutely right. Let's go back to, and what he was talking about was the targets, terrorism targets, and understanding what they attacked and why. Let's go back to September 11, right? I mean, Al-Qaeda wanted to make a statement, if you will, about the power of the U.S. government and the power of the U.S. economy, particularly the power of Wall Street. All right? What did they attack? Right? The World Trade Center, which was the symbol of Wall Street might and power and influence, and the Pentagon, and we believe that other plane was headed for the U.S. Capitol. Okay? The symbols of U.S. government and the symbols of Wall Street. You understand that. Charlie Hebdo, here's a magazine that was publishing cartoons which some extreme jihadist Muslims felt were insulting to Muhammad, ostensibly offending their religious feelings or beliefs. They went after the editors, the publishers, the people at that magazine, in that magazine's headquarters. All right. You can understand why that totally wrong, totally evil. You understand why that target. But what about these last attacks, last Friday evening, November 13th? People who are just attending a concert in that concert hall, what did that have to do with anything? And up till that point, France was a member of the coalition against ISIS, but they weren't the leaders by any means, or they weren't doing that much. But even if they were, right? Oh, the French capital, maybe, right? Or a French military installation, maybe. But concert hall? Are people attending a soccer match between Germany and France? Just out for like a good time? Or people in 4 different restaurants in Paris sitting outside and dining al fresco and just having a Friday evening meal and enjoying or having a drink at a bar? I mean, yeah, what was the rationale behind that? Totally. Now, I think the terrorists did that because they wanted targets that nobody would suspect that they might show up at. So those places were not as heavily guarded as the Paris of the Élysée would have been. For sure, maybe that's why. But that's all John Kerry was saying. And, you know, it raises an interesting point, which is how do you prevent future attacks like this? Because you have no idea.
That's the whole problem with terrorism.
It's the whole problem with terrorism. You have no idea what they might target next, right? If they were to come to Washington, everybody says, oh, Washington, boy, it's got to be a target. And this is one Yahoo, right, a terrorist on a video that we have saying, we hit Paris today and it's Washington, D.C. tomorrow. But if they came here, what would be their target? Do you really think they'd go after the Pentagon or the White House or the Capitol? You would understand why they might target them, but I don't think so because they're too heavily guarded. Right? Particularly for these kind of lone wolf or little pack attacks, right? They might more easily go to a restaurant up in Adams Morgan and make a point, which is what John Kerry was trying to say. So, yeah. But look, this is campaign season, and people will jump on anything anybody says just to try to score cheap political points, and Chris Christie and others, like Ted Cruz, are very good at that. Rebecca Sinderbrand, political news editor for the Washington Post. Take a quick time away from the refugee crisis to get the latest on the political season from Rebecca Sinderbrand coming up next segment. Stay tuned.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
I am your toilet, so how do you do? I take away your wee and the odd number 2. For a quiet moment, I'll always be there, bringing you troubles. You don't even have to care. Oh, think about the things you put me through. Things you put me through that I've been through you. Stuff from your body I'll happily take. Liquid or solid, whatever you make. When you think of all the things that I do, it's time to say thanks to your Lou. If I wasn't there anymore, you can only imagine disaster. I am a lifesaver, and that is not a lie. Where I don't exist, thousands die. So next time you have to do a poo or a wee, thank the sanitary saints that you have me. When you think of all the things that I do, it's time to say thanks to your Lou. La 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 la. La 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 la. It's time to say thank you to your Lou.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
The average tax.
To find the forest nearest you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
He's not running for president, but he will shake hands and kiss babies. It's the Bill Press Show, your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election.
You got it 13 minutes now before the top of the hour, stepping away from the refugee crisis and the refugee hysteria for just a moment. Maybe hysteria of a different kind. Latest polls out in New Hampshire yesterday showing Donald Trump way ahead of Ben Carson, falling back to 13%, and Donald Trump soaring at 23%. Remember, in that crowded field, you don't have to have 50 or 60% to win. Donald Trump, he couldn't help but crow about it yesterday.
Trump, 27. Rubio, second place, 13. Carson, 9. He's going down. He's going down.
That's great.
He was referencing a different poll than the one I was talking about, but they're all basically the same with a big lead up there. What's going on? Rebecca Sinderbrand, political news editor at the Washington Post, joining us on our news line this morning. Hello, Rebecca. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Donald Trump. Nobody can slow him down.
He's going down.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because everyone had this prediction. Look, now we have this serious moment. There's been the Paris attacks. Everyone is going to look to the grown-ups. This is the end of the outsider candidates. And in these polls that are starting to come out that were conducted entirely after the attacks, Donald Trump gained ground, not just nationally in New Hampshire. He's moving ahead. More support.
But it has proven true, hasn't it? It looks like it is for Ben Carson, who is, even as you saw in the New York Times yesterday, his own aides say is woefully ignorant of foreign policy.
And the funny thing about that was, the pushback from the Carson campaign to that story, where you had an aide saying he doesn't understand an iota about the Middle East, that I can't explain it to him, he doesn't seem to understand. Their pushback was, of course, that this advisor was old, he was confused, he didn't know what he was talking about, which, of course, raises the question of why this person was offering weekly briefings and why you connected into... Yes. So it's not exactly a banner week for staffing questions and for foreign policy questions for the Carson campaign.
Well, the other person who seems to at least potentially benefit from this is Jeb Bush. I mean, he gave a big speech yesterday on foreign policy. I saw an article in Politico this morning that was saying about how even Jeb Bush was surprised how he commanded the attention of this audience. I mean, he seems to have been finding his footing a little bit. Do you agree?
Well, it's interesting. Our reporter who was on the scene. Well, our reporter who was on the scene said, "Look, on the highlight reel of this campaign, if Jeb Bush put together a campaign highlight reel, that moment would have to be on it. That he did have that's right. That he commanded the room. That he seemed to be, finding his footing. He knew what he was doing. He was in command." But as you say, the question is whether the numbers are now baked in, whether that makes any sort of a difference. Like you have in these new polls, Republican primary voters saying that the fight against the Islamic State and the fight against terrorism is now their number one priority again. But it's not clear necessarily that Jeb Bush is the only one that benefits from that move.
No, but I do think it might help to winnow the field. So we saw the field shrink a little bit this week with Bobby Jindal dropping out. Who's next?
Well, you never want to make a prediction. If there's one thing that I have learned over 5 presidential cycles, it's never to make a prediction. But you will say this. You can notice a pattern that the 3 candidates who've dropped out of the Republican race so far, as you know, all past chairs of the Republican Governors Association. We have another couple of governors still in the race, not doing as well as perhaps they'd hoped. So you can't say that they'll necessarily be the next ones, but you can say that it's not a good year for governors.
So let's say George Pataki and Jim Gilmore. Then if you add them up, I'm just thinking so many of them.
There's 4. There's Chris
Christie and
Kasich,
Mike Huckabee and Kasich, right? That's 5, isn't it?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
They could be, and that would leave just the senators and the
it's
former
not as
Governor
though
Bush.
It's not as though Lindsey Graham has been, blazing across the field necessarily, but you can say that so far the people who've fallen off have been governors, and there's a question of why that's happening. In the past, it seemed like governors were the stronger candidates. That seems to have shifted.
Now, on the Democratic side, Bernie Sanders today going to Georgetown University and giving this long-anticipated speech about what it means to be a democratic socialist. Important speech for him?
Yes, and the other interesting thing about that, this has been a long-awaited speech. He's going to offer, an explanation of his worldview and where he's coming from. The question, of course, once again, it's the same as with his opening remarks at the debate. It's timing. In the statement from his campaign talking about this event, they said at the end he will also address the Islamic State and the Paris terror attacks. But this, of course, comes the same day that Hillary Clinton is delivering a major speech laying out her strategy to combat the Islamic State. So the contrast, if you're inclined to support Bernie Sanders, if you're a strong supporter, if your top priority is also economic issues, this will resonate. But for voters as a whole, it may feel a little off the moment.
Maybe he should give a speech today on national security rather than on democratic socialism, but that's the senator's strong issue, and he's wanted to give this speech for a long time.
He's sticking to it. He's consistent. Yeah.
All right, Rebecca Sinderbrand. All right, good to talk to you today. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you back in studio soon.
Thanks so much.
Thanks,
you
Rebecca.
Too.
WashingtonPost.com.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. So this is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude.
He's yelling at me.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Pull them out. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face.
On your face.
On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Just get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Okay. And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else. That we might be faced with, and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Jordan Fabian from The Hill joining us at the top of the next hour.
Okay, so we know that there are several governors now who have said that they are opposing Syrian refugees into their states. So yesterday, Ben Carson, presidential candidate, put out a little map showing all the different governors and the states and the governors where they've said that they will not allow Syrian refugees, and Ben Carson says he stands with them. But here's the problem. He's got a little geography problem on this map of the United States of America. So in his new map, Vermont is now south of Massachusetts, while Maine and New Hampshire are sort of in Quebec and New Brunswick. And they're all sort of molded together into some Vermontachusetts Shane.
I didn't grow up in Canada, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Where did he get the map?
I don't know. It came from his campaign. They put it out.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or wherever. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished when they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
In the first poll following the Paris attacks, Donald Trump soars and Ben Carson sinks. God, I don't understand. I understand one half of that, but not the other half. I don't know what the appeal is about Donald Carson, but he continues to be strong. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Here it is, November 19. On a Thursday, the Bill Press Show, live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, our studio in Capitol Hill, reaching out to you wherever you are in this great land of ours, on the radio with you, on your local progressive talk radio station, and on television with you on Free Speech TV, and on your electronic device, on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Welcome to the program. Good to see you today, and we've got lots and lots to talk about. Let's get right to it with our team here, Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Hey, Bill. Good morning.
Here we are.
Here we are on a Thursday. Ray Rogers. She's here to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS, or Peter will pick up your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show, and we're looking at you. Thanks to our videographer, Cyprian Bolding. And we welcome back to the program. You can tell President Obama's out of town because Jordan Fabian is here, covers the White House for The Hill. The first time we have seen him without a coat and tie.
Yeah, right. Is this what you wear to the beach? This is it. I dressed down today.
This is as casual as it gets.
Now, even Nixon, when he walked on the beach, walked on the beach. It is coat and tie, right? Yeah. You're looking good, Jordan. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
It's kind of a different time around Washington when the boss is out of town, right? Particularly for those of us who hang out at the White House.
Yeah, none of the daily briefings. The White House is a ghost town.
Yeah,
very interesting time.
No, it really is.
Yeah,
but the campaign or the problems have certainly they travel with the president wherever he happens to be. And by the way, on the as you know, just a quick note. On the political side this week, the Republican field narrowed just a little bit with another governor. First was Rick Perry, then Scott Walker, and now Bobby Jindal dropping out. Jimmy Fallon talked about the meaning of that last night.
Bobby Jindal announced that he is dropping out of the race for president. I guess that after talking it over with family and friends, he realized that even they didn't know he was running for president. I'm dropping out. Dropping out of what? I'm running for president.
Remember, he had his kids at one point or something talking about
his announcement video was him telling his children.
That was it.
With like a camera perched up in a tree in the backyard. You remember that?
Yes,
it was the weirdest announcement video any candidate has ever done.
I don't know about that. Do you remember the Huntsman video from 2012 with the motorcycle going through the desert?
Right.
Come on,
that was really weird.
That was insane.
That's right. That's right.
Do you think he had that camera up in the tree when he told them, "I hate to break the bad news to your kids,
I got some bad news.
But Daddy is dropping out.
I have to drop out."
That means you're going to see more of me. Oh, no. Jordan Fabian here. We'll follow the president to Manila and beyond. We're going to talk to the president of the Great Relief or Refugee Organization, World Relief, at the half hour. But first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. What a kooky story out of Norfolk, Virginia. 2 men stole a car out of a Norfolk post office, drove away, and realized that
there was a mail truck?
There was a child in the back of the car. A boy was in the back of the car, but they asked the boy, because it was yesterday morning, they asked the boy, where do you go to school? And he told them, so they drove him to school and dropped him off and then took off with the car. So clearly these are bad guys.
With a heart.
They got a little bit of a heart. At least they took the kid to school. You won't be late to school for any reason whatsoever. So at least they took the kid back to school.
The children are our future.
To Ghent Elementary School, yes,
if
indeed.
the kid had had a cell phone.
Yeah, right.
That would have been cool because they could have tracked the cell phone, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They still haven't found the guys, by the way. Just
really?
So you know, yeah. The Soup on E! Entertainment Network. The Soup has been on the air.
How old was the kid?
It didn't say.
So it
But he
wasn't
was
an infant.
grade school. No. He was able to
all right.
communicate with him. I'd say he's probably between 7 and 11, something like that. Talk Soup. Talk Soup is a show that started 22 years ago. About 11 years ago, they changed the name to The Soup, and it is going away. They announced it's going away. I love The Soup. It's been around for, again, 22 years. Remember, it was originally hosted by actor Greg Kinnear, who has gone on to become a well-known actor. It's now being hosted by Joel McHale, and they said it's just time for it to go away. It's sort of a clip show where they gather up clips from all different sorts of reality TV shows or things like that. But they said because of the internet, because things happen so quickly, by the time that they have this clip show done at the end of the week, a lot of people have already seen the viral clips. They're not really making things
I
go
remember
viral
when it
anymore.
started. I was in L.A. doing TV, and it got a lot of buzz at the time.
It was a
I always liked
great
it, too.
show. It's
Yeah.
been a great show for a long, long time. And by the way, some of the hosts that have come out of there, I mentioned Greg Kinnear, Hal Sparks, who we hear all the time on Stephanie Miller's show, Aisha Tyler, who's got a very successful podcast and is an actress. She used to host the show. And now, of course, Joel McHale. So, yeah, we will miss the show. And yesterday, the Eagles of Death Metal, the band that was playing at the Bataclan when the gun violence broke out in Paris, they broke their silence. They hadn't said anything really since the attack. They put out a statement on their Facebook page. They said, quote, although bonded in grief with the victims, the fans, the families, the citizens of Paris, and all those affected by terrorism, we are proud to stand together with our new family. We are now united by a common goal of love and compassion, end quote. They also thanked the French police, the FBI, the U.S. and French State Department, and especially everybody that was there at the show. They have suspended all of their touring for now. All of their future dates have been canceled, although they said that they will be back on the road again soon.
Yeah, boy, what an experience for them.
Yeah. They're a good band, by the way, for what it's worth. Let's throw that out there.
13 minutes after the hour now. So, Jordan, we haven't seen Josh Earnest at the briefing room, but Josh has been popping up on the morning shows here, particularly from Manila. Yesterday, an interesting little fiery little exchange with Elizabeth Hasselbeck, where she was saying maybe the president hasn't been strong enough in his comments about what happened in Paris. Here are the two of them really get into it.
I think what I would encourage you to do is to spend just as much time focusing on the president's actions as you do his words.
His words matter, Josh. I have to stop you there. Josh, I will stop you there. The president of the United
Elizabeth,
States
let me finish
words
my answer.
matter.
If you want to have me on your show, Elizabeth,
I will focus on my president's words,
talk about a
Josh.
serious issue, then give me an opportunity to answer the question.
I would love for you to answer it,
the
but
question by telling you that you should consider. Elizabeth, if you want to have me on the show to talk about something serious as our national security, you can ask me a question and I will answer it.
Wham! What's going on here, Jordan?
Well, look, the White House is clearly under pressure about Obama's message on ISIS. Him saying that the strategy they're pursuing is the right one, and they're going to essentially stay the course, is not resonating well with a lot of people, and obviously, especially not on Fox News. And that clearly evident during that interview.
Well, not just to Fox News. This sort of stems from, or is a follow-up to the president's news conference that he held in Turkey, where the media, our colleagues, right, and who were traveling with the president, were really hammering him for, A, how can you say your strategy is working, and B, why aren't we doing enough? Jim Acosta's famous question about why can't we get the bastards, right?
Right. No, absolutely. And we saw the president really on the defensive during that press conference, and a lot of people, even some Democrats I talked to this week, Eugene Robinson in the Washington Post, usually a defender of the president, not happy with what his message was. Essentially, going after Republicans on the refugee issue in harsher terms than, condemning the terrorist attacks. I don't think that resonated well with a lot of people. And the French president, Francois Hollande, is coming to the White House next week, and maybe that's a chance for the president to recalibrate his message, because I think he clearly has to put forth a different message than what he's been doing while overseas.
Can the administration honestly say that our strategy against ISIS is working?
I really don't think so. I think that's a really tough sell for them. I mean, they can make claims about, yes, ISIS has slightly less territory. We've taken out X, Y, and Z targets. But the reality is they still have what they can claim to be a caliphate, a large swath of land in Iraq and Syria. And now they've proven that they can use that as a launching pad to launch terror strikes overseas. Whereas before, we said, oh, this is a group with just regional ambitions. They don't want to attack France. They don't want to attack the United States. That's clearly not true anymore. And I think that we looked a little bit unprepared for that.
Right. I guess the entire world did, right? But yeah, they were able to reach out to just in the last 10 days to Beirut, to the Sinai Peninsula, and this Russian airliner, and now to Paris, and we'd be naive to think it's going to stop there.
Yeah, I think the president's going to be under tremendous pressure to show that he's doing more, to show that even if he doesn't want a huge strategic shift away from what he's doing, that they're going to press harder on bombing campaigns, bomb more targets, take out more ISIS leaders, cut off their financial supply line, those type of things.
So far we've seen the French really step up, and they seem to be the most aggressive now. Russia vows that they're going to do so as well. Is the United States going to be stepping up our bombing runs?
We've seen them step up in the last few days. There was a bombing raid on some of their oil trucks, which we haven't struck before for one reason or another. I think a lot of people are asking, why haven't we done these things before? But that's a huge source of their revenue is black market oil sales.
Yeah.
So going after those trucks, those oil pipelines, it would be a significant step if we can take out those targets. So we'll see what happens.
So has the president been the timing could not have been worse for him, in the sense that this happens when he's leaving for Turkey that very night, I believe, or the very next day.
It's the next day.
To Turkey. So he's been out of the White House. Has that been a problem for them, or has that really kind of slowed down their ability to be on top of things and to respond?
I don't think it's. I mean, I think they've been able to respond. Stepping up the bombing raids, communicating with people in France. But I think if you look at this trip, I think the point of the trip, traveling to places like Malaysia and the Philippines, was to sort of tout this, pivot to Asia and the Trans-Pacific Partnership and these new issues that the president wants to pursue. But then again, he's getting pulled right back into dealing with another conflict in the Middle East, with another terrorist attack. Issues that I think the president hopes that he would be able to move beyond, but hasn't been able to. So this terror attack in Paris has completely overshadowed those other things that the trip was supposed to be about.
Now, what about the refugee crisis? I mean, this has become like the sort of the centerpiece of debate in this country, where the president's plan or announced goal of being able to settle and accept 10,000 Syrian refugees in the next fiscal year, right?
Yeah.
Which at the time but a lot of other people said to only 10,000.
That's a remarkable thing about this debate, is that just a few weeks ago we were talking, the Obama administration was under pressure for not taking in enough.
Yeah.
And now it's we can't take in any.
Yeah. So where do we go? I mean, and even Chuck Schumer came out and said maybe it's time for a pause, right? I mean, so the president getting many allies in his in his battle to hold on?
Yeah, it's going to be tough for him, and it's really amazing because this is a debate over, America's historic role as a place where people fleeing conflict can come. Are we welcoming the immigrants? Like very personal, emotional, weighty issues, and that's why I think you've seen the type of rhetoric you've seen from President Obama, from Ted Cruz. But look, the polls show that the majority of the public is on the Republican side at this point in saying, look, we should probably pause this. Like you said, Chuck Schumer saying maybe we should pause this. We're hearing that between 10 and 30 Democrats in the House could vote with Republicans on a bill to pause the refugee program, and that vote is happening today.
So legislation authored by Speaker Paul Ryan.
Yes.
Like his first big act and his first bill that he's put in front
So
of
the politics for President Obama are tough on this one, but he's not showing any sign of backing down. Look, he's not running for re-election. This is something he cares very passionately about, as we've seen. So he's digging at his heels, and we'll see if he can fend off the effort to stop it.
I guess the question then is he's not running for re-election, but a lot of other people are, right?
Yes.
How that's going to impact Democratic Senate races, House races,
Hillary Clinton,
and the presidential race.
Yeah, we saw. I think this could be Obama could be a potential albatross for Democrats if foreign policy, terrorism continues to be a major issue. We saw Hillary, I think it was last weekend, say no, ISIS, shouldn't be just contained. It was a sort of a rebuke of President Obama's comments to George Stephanopoulos. So. She's distancing herself a little bit from the president's comments on that, whereas on other issues, she's been very quick to warm up to him. So,
all right. So the conflicts and the controversies continue to dog the president, no matter where he happens to be. Right now in Manila, heading for Malaysia, tonight, I guess, or
I think tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning, yeah. With Jordan Fabian here, covers the White House for The Hill. Very important questions, very important challenges facing the president. 866-55-PRESS if you want to weigh in. I have a question or a comment. We'll be right back.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us.
Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
World Relief is probably the leading refugee organization in this country. President of World Relief, Stephan Bauman, joins us on our newsline at the half hour. Right now we're talking presidential actions and politics with Jordan Fabian, who covers the White House for The Hill. Jordan, a couple of things in addition to the refugees the president still has to deal with when he comes back. Gitmo. We've been told they're coming up with he's still determined to close it, and they're coming up with a new plan, right? When?
It remains to be seen. I mean, for now, it's on hold. You know, all of us in the briefing room were expecting a plan to be put out last week. Yeah. That was what all the reports were saying. And even before, even before the terror attacks in Paris, I was hearing from folks at the White House that no, it's not going to be put out this last week. And then this week, with him being overseas, it was going to be put out. And now with the terror attacks in the news, I can't see them releasing a plan anytime soon. So
it would be awkward to do it right at this time.
The politics would be extremely tough.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. I mean, Republicans are already at Obama's throat about the refugee issue, and they're going to be even more vocal about opposing a plan to close down the Guantanamo Bay prison. So tough politics for Obama there. But you know, he said this morning he was meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister in the Philippines, and he said, "I'm hoping by next year we'd have less than 100 prisoners there." So more releases to overseas countries on the way.
And that's been their goal, isn't it? If they can get it below 100, then they believe they'll be able to get enough support in Congress to allow the remaining prisoners to go to some high-security prison here in this country.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Jordan Fabian, out of time, but we will give the rest of the day to you. You don't have to go to the White House. No briefing today, so make good use of it.
I'm going to hit the beach in my swimsuit here.
Right. Come back and see us again soon. I'll see you whenever we get the briefings back. All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Jordan.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts through scorching heat and freezing cold. From the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
And 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, here we go on November 19 on a Thursday. It is the Bill Press Show. We are coming to you live from our nation's capital here in Washington, D.C., where we're brought to you today by the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers Union. They've all gotten together to form a smart union. Smart-union.org is their website. The good men and women of the Smart Union under President Joseph Sellers giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. We salute them for their good work, thank them for their sponsorship of the program in Europe. Response to the terrorist attacks in Paris seems to be focused on trying to find the mastermind and any other people involved in those attacks. In the United States, the response to the terrorist attacks in Paris seems to be shutting the door to any Syrian refugees, if not permanently, at least temporarily. And the House of Representatives is going to vote on that legislation today. By contrast, World Relief, one of many faith-based organizations, probably the leading one, dealing with the refugee problems for years and years, is in the lead of trying to help the Syrian refugees. The website I've got open in front of me, We Stand with Refugees. World Relief is working with refugees fleeing violence in Syria. Stephan Bauman is the president and CEO of World Relief, joins us on our news line this morning. Mr. Bauman, good to have you with us.
Good morning, Bill. Pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
So tell us, first of all, how serious a threat to the United States do you see refugees from Syria?
Well, let me just say I understand why people would fear the events this weekend, and if you look at the events not just in Paris but across the world, it is certainly concerning. But I think it's important for people to look to the facts and history. The United States have been resettling refugees for about 35 years, about 3 million people, and none of them have ever been terrorists in the history of the 35-year program. And that's our experience, too. World Relief has resettled about 250,000 refugees, including some Syrians recently, but there's only a few Syrians that have come in, less than a couple thousand so far. And in our history, 35 years, 250,000 people, no terrorists. So it's important to look at that history and that data. It's also important to look at the process that is undergone by a refugee family when they come to the United States. It's a 13-step process. 4 steps are full-on security clearance with the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Health. And it takes about 18 months if it's fast-paced, often 24 months. And all of those steps happen before the family ever enters the United States. So it's a very thorough screening process that unfortunately isn't being talked about as much as it should.
I don't think it's being talked about at all. And you have to wonder, I mean, I'm sure your organization and others have informed members of Congress about the process and exactly how stringent it is.
Yeah, there's many members of Congress, many governors, many politicians, senators that know the process in detail. So I'm concerned that what's happening in Washington today and past week is more about politics than it is about substance, and sort of capitulating to the fear rather than talking about the facts and taking a hard look at those facts, and then really trying to find courage in the midst of those facts based on the good data and the good history of 35 years. What
is the total Syrian refugee population that we're dealing with in the West? Well, the numbers we're looking at right now in terms of Syrians that have come into the United States through the refugee program, right,
is less than 2,500. Now, beyond those that have come in through the program, there's very few. I mean, my understanding, there's not large Syrian populations in the United States apart from the refugees that have come in recently. Now, the goal and the hope is that, the administration has approved 10,000, which is really small, and some of us are advocating for 100,000, which is still not a big number when you compare it to our history and you compare it to what other nations are doing. I was encouraged by the President France's comments, I believe it was yesterday, who said, look, we're not going to stop our program, which is aimed to take 30,000 refugees over the next couple of years. And, of course, he, like all of us, are going to go back through their process and their security to make sure it's tight. But he's recognizing that the people that are refugees are victims of ISIS. They're victims just as much as the victims in France or in Nigeria or other parts of the world where there's terrorism.
But of the 10,000, or even if we took 100,000, the total population of refugees that have fled Syria is it 5 million, 8 million? I've just lost track of.
It's 4 million that have fled the country, so they're technically refugees. And refugees, it's a technical term, which means when somebody leaves their border, when they're displaced inside their country, it's called internally displaced, or IDPs. So when you put together the refugees of about 4 million, plus the IDPs inside Syria of another 4 million, it's about 8 million. So that's where that number's coming from. And the 8 million is upwards of about half the country as a whole. So it's a major crisis that if we don't find some way to help the situation, it's going to be a chronic problem for years to come.
When in terms of World Relief and other organizations, what can you provide these refugees, Stephen, when they get here to the United States? I mean, so the government, if they survive this screening process, right, and they land in a community, what resources can you provide, or what do they need, and what can you provide?
Yeah, so the government provides a small allowance per refugee, and we help facilitate that allowance towards a number of things. One is just a place to live, apartments, and setting up that apartment. And in our communities around the country where we work, about 27 different cities, our staff work with the communities, work with local churches to provide a lot of those things gratis. So all the setup costs to build to start a home in an apartment building, that usually comes from the community and from churches, from people just like you and I that want to help.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's paying the first month's rent. It's setting up utilities. It's getting the families into an English training program. It's starting the process of job placement.
I was just going to say, what about a job?
And then it's also civic stream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so job is one of the most important things. And what people tend not to understand is that when you look at the research and the data, there's a great study out of the University of Texas in Austin that shows that after the initial investment, and there is some, the economic there's an economic benefit of refugees in communities over the long term. They stimulate job growth. There's often entrepreneurship and new businesses that are started. So what people tend to think is it's a drain on the economy and a drain on jobs, but the opposite is actually true when you look at the research. And when you talk to communities that are hosting refugees, and I do this all the time, I meet with business leaders, and they say, send us more refugees. They're some of our best workers.
Right.
There's a longevity. There's low turnover. And communities say, hey, look, they're starting businesses. They're revitalizing areas of our neighborhoods and our towns that were struggling. So it's a very interesting story when you get down on the ground and you meet both families, refugees, the communities, and talk to politicians, the mayors. It's a very different story than what you hear right now in the halls of Congress.
For sure. Now, as a faith-based organization, what is your reaction to the suggestion by Jeb Bush or Ted Cruz that we'd be better off and we'd be safer if we just let Christian Syrians in and no Muslims?
Well, it's such an interesting comment, and I think that, and as you mentioned, I come from a very devout perspective of faith personally and as an organization. So that's my perspective. But when I look at Christianity or any religion, the dangers come when it becomes insular and starts to serve only your own and really start to put up border fences around your community, as it were. I think that's a real dangerous thing, even when you just look at faith full stop. When you look at our country and our nation, we've never done that. We've never put a litmus test, a religious litmus test on compassion. I thought the president said it well. We will not qualify our compassion. But I think doing something like that begins to it's almost the beginning of the end regarding our values as a nation. I mean, all of us, I mean, with the very few exceptions of the original Americans, we were either refugees or immigrants. My wife's grandfather was a refugee coming from a Jewish context in the former Soviet Union. He was turned away by our country and later had to come in a different way. And, he was turned away because of his faith. And that was a blight on our nation's history, not looking now in hindsight at the days of Hitler. we don't want to fall back into that type of fear and decisions that we won't be proud of for the next years to come.
Well, I admire the work you're doing so much, and hope that we all come to our senses as a nation and don't repeat some of the hateful past, the hateful incidents that have popped up in the past, and we all know what they are. And we want to tell all of our listeners and our viewers today that there's one way that they can really express their support, and that's by going to worldrelief.org and helping with a very, very important work that you're doing. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for taking time for us today, and keep up the good fight.
Hey, thank you, Bill. God bless you all, and appreciate all that you're doing on your show.
All right. Thank you. Stephen Bauman is the president and the CEO of World Relief. Worldrelief.org. Check out their website to see they're active all over the world, particularly on the Syrian refugee crisis.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
11 minutes before the top of the hour, Cameron Joseph from the New York Daily News and Igor Bobic from Huffington Post join us in the next hour. Right now, some breaking news. The headline in the New York Times this morning back to Paris is on edge as fate of the attack's organizer is still a question mark. The breaking news is it is no longer a question mark. French officials have just in the last few minutes confirmed that in that raid on an apartment building in Saint-Denis, a suburb of Paris, which was one of the safe houses that the terrorists involved in Friday night's attacks used. There were 3 such safe houses. A cell phone left at the site of one of the, either the concert hall, I don't know, or one of the restaurants.
Yeah.
Through information on that cell phone, they were able to, they learned about these 3 safe houses, particularly the one in Saint-Denis, where it looked like the organizer of the attacks, the man who planned all the 6 different attacks in Paris Friday night, was holed up with some other accomplices planning their next attack, which I believe would have been in Germany. I think they were heading, the reports were they were heading for Germany.
Yeah.
And they had ammunition, they had suicide vests and everything. Early yesterday morning, we know the French police stormed that building. There were 7 or 8 people arrested. There were 2 people killed, and 1 woman blew herself up with a suicide vest. Again, French authorities this morning confirmed that one of the people killed was Abdelhamid Aboud, who was the they believe, was the mastermind of the Paris terrorist attacks. Which is certainly good news. Brings a lot of relief, I'm sure, to the French people that this guy is gone. It doesn't mean that another terrorist will rise up to take his place. That's the problem we've seen with these terrorist organizations, whether it's, Osama bin Laden or Abdelhamid Aboud.
Yeah.
But certainly at the present time, he was the ringleader, and that will certainly set him back a few paces.
Yeah,
so, so they got him. They got him.
This is a big deal, but it's like you said, it's not a reason to get too comfortable.
And they had a European-wide hunt for this guy. Remember, the first day they were searching for him in that suburb of Brussels.
Mm-hmm.
I think because he was in Belgium. I think he is a Belgian citizen. And they found him now in this, and didn't confirm until just a few minutes ago that he was in that safe house in Saint-Denis, just outside of Paris. So good for them, and brings a little bit of relief. But the fight goes on. We're dealing with an enemy that's going to be around for a long time, and remember, particularly because the whole operation was coordinated with ISIS in Syria, and they certainly are planning more attacks outside of the caliphate of ISIS. Who knows where? And they've got other leaders like this guy all around the world. We'll bring you all the latest, and when we come back, President Obama is still on the road. We'll bring up to date on his schedule and his busy meetings today in Manila. Thursday, November 19, The Bill Press Show.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, you know how it is. We can never pack it into 2 hours. We need a third hour every day, and that third hour comes to you on delay on Free Speech TV, 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 Central, 2 Pacific. We want to see you then, but we also want to see you like right away, live. So jump over to our video stream, TawkrTV, and follow us coming up with Cameron Joseph from the New York Daily News and Igor Bobic from the Huffington Post to talk about the whole refugee problem here in hour number 3 on today's edition of The Bill Press Show.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
should I get back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
You and discover cool things to do when you go. Visit discovertheforest.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. 4 minutes now before the top of the hour. You know, related to this whole question of our response to the terrorist attacks in Paris is the fact that in this country, as reported in the Daily News yesterday, there's a legal loophole so that terrorists who are on our government's no-fly list, right? They can't get on a flight because they're suspected terrorists. They are still allowed legally to buy guns in this country. There's a bill to close that loophole, and the NRA opposes it. 91% of all suspected terrorists who tried to buy guns in America walked away, went in between 2004 and 2014 and walked away with a gun. How can they defend that? Cameron Joseph has reported that for the New York Daily News, and he'll join us in studio at the top of the next hour. President Obama just about winding up his day now in the Philippines. They're so far ahead. He had the APEC, that's what he's there for, the Asian Pacific Economic Summit. Had their family photo today, participated in 2 different sessions of APEC, had a one-on-one meeting with the new Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau of Canada, and then ended with a bilateral meeting with the Prime Minister of Japan. The president spends another night in the Philippines before he takes off for the last stop on his this long visit, international trip to Malaysia. Back in the White House for a couple of days, and then he'll be off to Paris right after Thanksgiving. And we'll be back for hour number 3 here of the Bill Press Show. Stay with us on your local radio and on Free Speech
This
TV.
is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night. And I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this, because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, The state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
They got him. French authorities confirming the mastermind of the Paris attacks last Friday night was killed yesterday in that raid on a terrorist safe house in Saint-Denis, just outside of Paris. 7 people arrested, 2 people killed, one of whom was the mastermind of that attack, the man they've been searching for the last 5 days. They got him. With that good news, we start out hour number 3 here on a Thursday, November 19. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. It is the Bill Press Show. We're here in Washington, D.C., but we are there with you everywhere in this great land of ours, on the radio and on television. On the radio, of course, on your local progressive talk radio station, on the 2 great radio apps, either TuneIn or iHeartRadio, both free. Download them. Take us with you on the radio wherever you go. We're also there with you on television on Free Speech TV in this country and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. And we'd love to have you join the conversation by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. With all of that, let's get to work here. Saying hello to the team, by the way, Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Happy Thursday.
Good morning.
Happy Thursday.
1 week until Thanksgiving. I'm very excited
about it.
Yeah. I love it. It's my favorite holiday.
You started you cooking yet?
Not yet. I was actually just talking over the weekend. I'm going to have to do some shopping for Thanksgiving. We're going to have to get started early.
Well, you need to train, too. You know, you need to start eating big meals now.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to just jump into the Thanksgiving meal.
Like
That's right. That's a good point.
You got to do your 10-miler first,
to warm up, right. Ray Rogers is with us to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, also on the job. And you just heard from Cameron Joseph from the New York Daily News joining us on this Thursday. Hello, Cameron. Always good to see you.
Good to be
on. You're going home to Chicago for Thanksgiving, right?
I love going back to Chicago. They know how to eat there. It's a serious food city. I go back, they got all the food, and I feel like a skinny person there. It's glorious.
Chicago knows how to eat, man.
Yeah, they don't mess around.
Chicago knows how to eat.
Chicago does. All of our good friends on WCPT, right there. Yeah, they gobble down. Right. Now, so, you know, we have a great suggestion for you. On the way from the airport, you might stop at Walmart and pick up a Patti LaBelle sweet potato pie, right? This is the latest craze, the big hit of the season this year at Walmart for Thanksgiving. The problem is they can't keep them on the shelves. They are flying off the shelves. Walmart has reported a pie every second sold.
Can't make the pies fast enough.
Can't make the pies fast enough.
God bless America.
It's really, man.
It's because there's a guy named James Wright who is a singer, puts out a blog. He does food reviews every once in a while. And he went in and bought a Patti LaBelle pie and put this up online. And It is taken off. Here you go.
I went and bought the Patti LaBelle pie. Sweet potato Patti LaBelle. This is the Patti edition, honey. This is the on my own. Why did it end this way? Ooh, Patty's so moist. Come on, Patti. Patti. I want to taste Patti live. Whoa, yeah. Bitch, I turned into Patti. You turned into Patti after eating this.
Now, if that won't make you buy that pie, what would?
I mean, first of all, I love the concept of eating a pie on my own. Second of all, like if a pie can make me sing like that, I'm all in. But I mean, that's just incredible. It's just like the marriage of like all things that make America great.
Yeah,
like,
it really is.
Capitalism, like freaking out at something on the internet, and like overindulging, and Walmart.
Yeah,
This is
Walmart.
perfect. Yeah.
It's
It's the quadrifecta.
And you add them all together. Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, those damn turkeys are loose in the studio again. There they go. There go the turkeys. Every Thanksgiving they find their way in here. It's the weirdest thing, Bill.
They got loose again this year. Yeah, kind of a silly season here today, but we'll get serious in just a second here with Cameron Joseph from the Daily News, and Igor Bobic from the Huffington Post joins us at the half hour. Peter. What's first?
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Yes, indeed. Congratulations to Dallas Keuchel from the Houston Astros and Jake Arrieta from the Chicago Cubs. I saved the story for you, Cam, because they are the winners of the Cy Young Awards in Major League Baseball. Arrieta winning for the National League, Keuchel winning for the American League. Should be pointed out, I'm sure if I didn't do it, you would, Cameron, that Chicago Cubs have Manager of the Year in Joe Madden, Rookie of the Year in Chris Bryant, now a Cy Young Award winner in Jake Arrieta. That, of course, doesn't probably help the pain of not winning the World Series, but good for them. They had a very, very good team this year, and they'll be back. So congratulations to those two pitchers.
Cubbies, yep.
Later today in Georgia, Marcus Ray Johnson is set to be put to death by electric chair, and he asked for his final meal. You know, you get a final meal, your death row meal.
Patti LaBelle sweet potato pie.
Well, he actually asked for a 6-pack of beer for his final meal, right? And the prison said, no, you can't have it. It's contraband. We can't bring
no alcohol.
No alcohol. You can't have any alcohol as part of your last meal. So
give the guy a break.
Look, this is a bad guy.
Yeah.
However, give him a 6-pack of beer before you send him off to Mika's Mater, right? Mm-hmm. So instead, this bums me out because he's going to get the same meal as all the other inmates. He doesn't have time to change his order. He's going to get baked fish, cheese grits, dry mixed beans, coleslaw, cornbread, cookies, and fruit punch.
They should at least give him O'Doul's.
Yeah, right?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Just to get that taste of beer. No, sorry, not going to happen. Not going to happen. And if you're flying on Delta, there's a good chance that they would actually kill your pet, right? They have the highest death rate of all the airlines if you check your luggage, which happens to be a pet sometimes. Whoa. With Delta, they have the highest rate of pet deaths of any airline. So they announced that they are going to change their pet policy. What they used to do, by the way, is you would carry your pet if it fit into a crate, and they would put it in the cargo hold. They'd put it where all the bags are, right? Which is not very good for the animal. So they said from here on out, if you want to fly with your pet, you have to buy your pet a seat and bring it onto the airplane.
Well, some pets that'll work, but you don't want to.
Some pets it won't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not going to be pleased with like the potbelly pig flyers.
That's right.
No. Right.
That's
Great
right.
Dane flyers.
Or, big dog flyers.
Yeah.
According to the Department of Transportation, 74 pets died flying with Delta between May 2005 and September 2015. That's 25% of all airline pet deaths have happened with Delta. So if you want to, like I said, if you want to do it, you got to buy them a ticket.
Yeah, just let them run loose in the plane. Be right.
Just have like pets only flights, right? Like if you're going to fly with your pet, like that's the only way you get on that one, right? Don't sell it to regular passengers.
It's like they finally got the cigarette smells out of those planes from the 70s, and now we're going to start adding
pet smells.
Dog, exactly.
I don't think so. All right.
Good luck.
Good enough. Yep. Thank you, Peter. So, Cameron, I want to start with the front page of the Daily News. The cover of the Daily News yesterday is your article, at any rate, about this incredible story. Terrorist people who are on the no-fly list, right, in this country. So they're suspected terrorists, yet they can legally buy a gun?
Yep, that has no prohibitions on them. When you talk about background checks, it doesn't get factored in. And they've been trying to pass a law since 2007, bipartisan legislation since 2007, to close that loophole and make sure that, if you've been flagged as a possible terrorist, you can't legally just walk into a Walmart, say, and just buy a gun and have that be totally legal, totally not problematic, and have no hiccups, and they would have no idea that you're on this list. Now, granted, the terror watch list isn't perfect. There's a lot of people on there that might not, that probably shouldn't be. It's up to like 1 million people. But at the same time, it seems like, it should at least raise a flag, have them look a little deeper into who this person is and why they're trying to buy guns and ammunition.
One would think so. So where's the opposition come from?
Take a guess. It's the NRA, and they won't let it through. They fought it tooth and nail, and you can make an argument about the issues with the terrorist watch list, but they're basically saying, no, this is just an impingement on the one amendment we care about. And I was up on the Hill this week, and Dianne Feinstein's the main sponsor in the Senate, and she's talking about, we're going to push for hearings in the Senate, and we're going to get this in front of Judiciary. I'm writing a letter to the Republican chairman. We'll see if that happens or not. But Peter King is the Republican from Long Island who has been backing this for years. And I asked him about this. I was like, look, after Paris, is there any chance this is going to come up? And he just rolled his eyes. He's like, this is a non-starter. We're never getting this done in the Congress with the Republican Congress. Basically, he said there's 5 Republican co-sponsors. That's not nearly enough. And, with the NRA against this and Republicans in control, something that I think a lot of people would see as fairly common sense. And there's, civil libertarian arguments against it. It's just a complete non-starter, and there's probably not even a real debate about it.
If I were a lobbyist for the NRA, I would find it hard to explain why terrorists need, I wouldn't find it hard to explain why terrorists need guns, but why it's a good idea to allow terrorists or suspected terrorists to buy guns openly in this country.
Yeah, and maybe that's the reason they didn't get back to us on this story. But although the NRA does have a particular issue with the Daily News because we tend to support, some modest gun proposals, but they just don't even talk to us anymore. But I think this is one of those things. You even see like school shootings. You see Wayne LaPierre yelling about how you want to see more guns in schools so that people can fire back and limit the damage. We haven't really seen that argument here. So it's I think telling that even the NRA doesn't want to talk about why they oppose this, but I also think that it's interesting. It opens up a real interesting dynamic and discussion about where is the line between civil liberties and protecting the whole country. And we're seeing a lot of discussions on other fronts right now about, well, should we lock things down? Should we give up some of our rights to be able to protect ourselves? Right. Obviously, the refugee thing has become a huge political football. But this is not one that we've seen a ton of discussion about until we raised it, and it seems like a lot of people are going, "What? This is the law right now." People are just shocked that it even could be, something that was going on right now. So
it fits the NRA playbook in opposition to any restriction whatsoever, even if it makes eminent sense, right?
Yeah.
They're opposed to it.
Yeah, and that's where they come down on this. And strategically, it makes sense because if they drag their feet on this and they fight this, and even if this goes through, it takes years, which it has. It's been almost a decade since this was first introduced by a now dead senator in 2007. That if we're fighting about this, that we're not really fighting over some of background checks or anything else they actually really hate. And so I'm not saying there aren't policy arguments for and against this bill. The terrorist watch list is not perfect, but this seems like a gimme, and this isn't going to happen. And I think that says where the Congress is right now.
It also relates to something that we talked about earlier in the program this morning, which is the very same people who are rising up in arms saying we need tougher background checks on these Syrian refugees, even though The process today takes 18 months to 2 years, and is like the head of World Relief told us earlier on the program, it's a 14-step program, and they have to go through all of these 14 hoops, 5 of which are directly related to national security with the FBI and the DHS and everybody involved in it. And the people who are saying, well, that's not enough. We need tougher background checks for the Syrian refugees. Don't want any background checks at all when it comes to buying a gun.
Yeah, there's a little bit of hypocrisy there. I think it's notable that I forget who it was, but it was a Texas Republican politician this week made an argument against letting refugees in because it's so easy to buy guns here.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, that is
Isn't that great? It's just an amazing story.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, which of these two problems should we be addressing right now? Then it's like, okay, you made a point. Yeah, it's easy to get guns here.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
Yeah,
yeah,
right. So I mean, I think it's interesting to see how this discussion's going, and frankly, if you're ISIS and you actually want to, wreak terror and get an attack in, you're not going to try and squeeze through a widow or orphan who's going to take 2 years and probably isn't going to get into the U.S. anyways through a refugee program that's very stringent already. You're probably going to pick one of the people who has a U.S. passport or has an EU passport who can easily get here. And I mean, the idea that blocking 10,000 refugees, which is already pretty small number. We're talking about 10 million people displaced by the conflict in Syria. We're talking, barely 1% of that. That somehow that's going to create a problem. And we didn't really hear all these complaints and concerns about all the Iraqi refugees that came in after we invaded Iraq and they needed somewhere to go. And, we heard some people on the right grumbling about it, but it wasn't like this. It wasn't about shutting down the program. And so, I think it's notable where we are.
Yeah, Peter, you were mentioning there's a mayor in Virginia, I believe, yesterday.
Roanoke, I believe.
Right.
Who brought up the idea that we've had this problem before with Japanese people that were here, and we just put them in internment camps, so no big deal.
Yeah.
Right? We could go back to that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, and he's a Democrat, notably.
Yeah,
so
he is. It's a good point.
Bipartisanship doesn't know D or R, or idiocy can really spread across the country.
No,
and to her credit, Hillary Clinton said, all right, you're off my leadership team. Now, it was interesting he was on the leadership team in the first place. But it's, I think, interesting. People look back at this, and I take this a little personally because as a Jew with distant relatives who died in the Holocaust, we couldn't get in. My family couldn't get in. So
there's a viral story going around now about how Otto Frank, father of Anne Frank, tried to get to America. We declined. We said no thanks.
So would you do me a favor when you leave here? Would you call Chuck Schumer and remind him that where he came from and he's out now calling for a pause in the Syrian refugee program.
I was standing there, and I think that was slightly misreported. I mean, what he said is we might need a temporary pause as we look at the whether all of these checks are working. He was basically saying we're going into this briefing. I want to see how this program is working once we get our private briefing. And they're like, well, somebody was like, well, okay, you're not talking about a total pause in the program like McConnell and like Paul Ryan are talking about, but if this isn't where it needs to be, do you think there should be a temporary pause while you fix it, basically? And then he's like, yes, I think there might, there's a possibility that there's a, small chance there might need to be a pause. And of course, the Republicans took that quote and blasted it everywhere. I'm not saying he was gung ho firing back against the Republicans' efforts to end this refugee program, but at the same time, like what he was reported to have said. I mean, I was standing right in front of him when he said it. Is not what he said.
I'm glad you clarified that because he was on my list there for a while. I'll give him another break. Cameron Joseph with us. You see, he's all over the place on this issue and many others. We'll be right back. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend.
My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
With Cameron Joseph from the Daily News. Cameron, you've been covering the political scene. Who on the Republican side benefits most from this shift to foreign policy?
I think Marco Rubio does. He has really gone very hawkish. He sounds very intelligent on this, and he really is in a position where this is exactly what he wants to be talking about, and frankly what he's been talking about for the last 18 months to 2 years, and re-injected himself into this presidential race with, when we were talking about the issues in Ukraine, and then right after Jeb Bush made his big splash, Rubio got right back into the news cycle talking about Cuba. He's knowledgeable about this. This gets the neocons on his side, and frankly, Jeb Bush, every time he talks about this, people just think of his brother, and that's not always helpful. So I think Marco Rubio is the big winner on the GOP side with this.
And not Ben Carson.
No, a man whose own advisors say we don't think he knows what he's talking about. That's not helpful.
Great. Hey, Cameron, thanks so much. Great to see you. DailyNews.com. Follow him every day. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada! What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies in Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, here we go. 33 minutes after the hour, Thursday, November 19. Talk about the Syrian refugee crisis is dominating the news and the politics here in this country. Most people talking about it, I would say, starting with the Speaker of the House of Representatives and certainly every one of the presidential candidates. None of them know what they're talking about. Our next guest does. Igor Bobic from the Huffington Post is a refugee himself who came here from Bosnia and made it all the way to the Bill Press studio which is that was your goal in the first place.
It's a sanctuary, Bill.
Sanctuary.
We're a sanctuary city here, happily.
Hi, Igor. Nice to see you.
Thanks.
Welcome. So tell us your story and how it relates to what you're hearing today about refugees.
Yeah, I mean, it hits very, very close to home for me. I was born in Bosnia, came over right kind of in the thick of it, in the thick of the Bosnian War, right as Yugoslavia was falling apart, 95, 96.
How'd you get out?
That is a long and complicated story, which we probably need more time for. But the brunt of it, basically had a family member smuggle us across the border. There was a nighttime kind of dash across the border. Very scary because they shut down, the line between Bosnia and Croatia, and they had, guns trained on the border. Ended up making it from there to Croatia, and then Serbia.
How old were you?
I was 7 or 8. So still pretty vivid memories of, just in fear, like holding on to my mother for dear life, basically. Sleeping on the floors of ice rinks, sleeping on the ground, a lot of these images that I see coming out from Syria, that was me. That was the kid, sleeping in a bush, basically. So, I ended up making it to Serbia, applied for refugee status there. We were there for, a year, 2 years waiting. So
where were you then? In Croatia?
In Serbia.
In Serbia.
Yeah.
Going into Serbia.
Yeah. We were taken in by a very nice family, a Catholic family, who out of the goodness of their heart opened their home for us. And this was Serbia at the time.
It was
right. They took in a Bosnian Muslim family. Imagine what their neighbors were saying. What their friends were saying to them. For them to take us in, and I just am forever grateful to them.
How many in your family? Just you and your parents, or
three of us.
Yeah. Right.
So
you applied for a visa to this
refugee status.
Refugee status.
And it took a year and a half, waiting, basically, seeing what part of the world we're going to end up in. You just don't know what your future is going to be, and that was the scariest part of it.
So when you apply for refugee status to the UN, is that it? Or
correct.
I see. And then they assign you to
right. We had a couple options. We had we almost ended up in Canada. I think it was Ottawa or something like that. And I remember my father going to the library actually, and trying to do some research on some of these locations they were talking about. And one of them was San Diego, and the other one was Ottawa. And he was afraid of going to San Diego because he saw in books or on TV that it was a desert. And when we walked out of the plane, this is years later, when we walked out of the plane and saw these like palm trees and beaches, like basically paradise.
Yeah, exactly.
Could not stop laughing. No. So we almost ended up in like Canada,
Okay.
So,
who wants to go to San Diego?
Right.
It looks miserable there.
You were so lucky.
Man.
One of my favorite cities. I love San Diego. A lot of good friends there. I was just there 2 weeks ago, and I know exactly. You arrive at that airport, you walk out, it is paradise. Yeah. Beautiful San Diego Bay. You're right there. Yeah.
Gorgeous.
So you landed in San Diego. Good for you.
Right?
Yeah. Luck of the draw.
Incredibly fortunate that I made it out. The situation over there, there is peace, but it's 50% unemployment. People are on drugs, basically. So it's not a good. I would not have led a good life if it wasn't for the graciousness of people here to open their hearts, basically, and to say, come, we'll take you in. And that's kind of what gives me perspective here in this conversation. And it just pains me to see refugees basically exploited, kind of in this election. Painted as the terrorist, basically.
And is there? I want to talk about this scrutiny that you went through. I mean, this 18. And we had earlier the president of World Relief was on in the last hour. He said it's 18 months, maybe as much as 2 years, and it's 14 different steps and levels, and looking at everything about your background before, and that's before you even come to this country.
Right. I mean, we were waiting and waiting and waiting, and you literally have no idea. I mean, you just give them your paperwork, and they're going through your life basically. We came from a slightly different situation. I mean, Bosnia at that time was different. I mean, we we were killing each other. We weren't blowing up cities. Right. So a little bit inarticulate, but the fact there. But so I can see how politically right now why people would have a reason to be concerned. But I want to say that's unfounded. The fears over it are unfounded. These are generally good people who need help. That we should help.
When you see the President of the United States, so since the beginning of the Syrian civil war, we have taken in less than 2,000, according to World Relief, and I've heard of 2,000, maybe as high as 2,200 or something, refugees from Syria, total, out of 11 million people displaced, right?
Yeah.
And now the president has said, okay, we're gonna take our share. We're gonna do 10,000.
And he was getting criticized.
Right.
He was getting criticized for taking 10,000.
Exactly, right.
Like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't enough.
Right.
No. I mean, I go to the briefings every day. At the briefings, the questions all were, why only 10,000?
Right.
I asked that question myself, right? And they were under fire for not like President Hollande yesterday in France, the one just attacked, said we're going to stick to we're going to take 30,000. That's what we promised before. We're not going to let this deter us. So now 10,000. Now he's getting criticized for taking 10. We had to shut our doors to any, or at least have a longer period or more screening.
Right.
Which strikes you
Or
as...
take only Christians.
Or take only Christians,
yeah.
of course.
Say Shibboleth. Basically. No, it's funny. We just went through this a year ago. People really have amnesia when it comes to it. Ebola. We were all panicked about Ebola. CNN had us screaming about Ebola 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And nobody remembers it now, It's generally, it's a problem that, has not made it to our shores, despite all the calls for travel bans. So it's kind of a similar situation of hysteria and mass panic that just in a couple of months, I think nobody's going to really be worried about.
So once you got to San Diego, let's press this a little further. So you have... You've landed better than maybe you could ever dream, right? You landed in San Diego, but you don't have a house, you don't have a job, you don't have resources. I mean, you were not, I'm sure, a wealthy family.
No.
So how'd you get on your feet? Were there local?
There were
people?
So there were state and federal agencies that were assigned to. We had a person from the government assigned to our family who was there making sure that we had access to try to find a job, put us through agencies. I remember
about language.
Fortunately for me, I was just kind of put into school, and you're as a kid, your ear just picks it up.
Yeah.
My parents had to learn, which is hard on them. But I remember going to office buildings, like an office building that I work right now at night, cleaning office buildings with them, because that's what we had to do to survive.
That's what your mom and dad did for
right. As soon as we came in, that was the first job available, so they took it because it's fight or flight basically. And from there on, kind of made it to school. Went to University of California, Irvine. Ended up making it to DC. Got into journalism. Kind of the dream scenario for me.
Well, the reason I want to ask you about that is I think you are not alone, right? I mean, that is sort of the story of immigrants and refugees who come to this country,
right?
Who may be higher motivated than some people who live here in terms of getting a job and getting a house and getting their family ahead and learning the language, and really there's a certain drive there, right?
And it gives you perspective, when something like this happens, or it makes you appreciate kind of the freedom and the safety that we have here.
Yeah.
When people say, this country is going to hell and yada yada yada, like,
make America great again.
No, damn it! I was there. I was back there. I was through a war. That is really, what the situation that we shouldn't get to. Not, as you said, shouting about making America great again. America is great. It's an awesome country because we let in these people, because I'm here. And, I'm kind of a testament to that.
Yeah. What a powerful story.
It's good stuff, man.
Yeah. Igor Bobic here from Huffington Post. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number if you have a comment or a question. and we'll continue. This could be one of our proudest moments or one of our most shameful moments for this country.
Right.
You know, either way. It looks like it's going in one direction.
Yeah.
We like to turn it around if we can here on the Bill Press Show.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Yep, you're worried about what these refugees might mean to America. Meet Igor Bobic from Huffington Post, who had that experience, came here with his family. Look where he is today, associate politics editor at the Huffington Post, huffingtonpost.com, with a powerful story to tell. You've been covering the political season, and now the political season is all about how particularly the Republican candidates respond to the refugee crisis.
Mm-hmm.
How are they doing?
Not well, in a couple words.
Yeah.
But look, at some level, I understand this is our democracy and it's political silly season. People are going to make hay out of small things to get votes. It's just a matter of fact. It is unfortunate that these people who are good people who need help and safety are being exploited in that way. But at some level, I understand that's what they're trying to accomplish. They're trying to get in the office. And these days, winning the GOP nomination is
is incredibly. You got to like get down and dirty into it.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Mitt Romney. He had to like swing far right on immigration.
Yep.
Hell, he called for
self-deportation.
Self-deportation. I mean, it just ruins you.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening right now. And a potential nominee who comes out of this is going to be facing, ads basically come next year, saying that you did this to these people. So that's what they're having to look forward to.
The optics of if you are someone who's looking to come here, if you are a refugee, and you've got the majority of the American states saying, governors putting out statements saying, we don't want you, we won't take you. You've got, I shouldn't say the front runners for the Republican nomination, but, Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, both saying you've got to be a Christian to come here. Like, the message we're sending out to the world is not a good one. It's so bad.
I think yesterday Bloomberg came out with a poll, that had something like 50%, 53%.
53%.
Agreeing with these governors, basically. And at some level, they talk about leadership all the time, and what better time to lead than saying, "Hey, we've got to be understanding." Sure, there are legitimate concerns about security, but let's wisen up and give these people a chance.
Well, the other thing I think a lot of Americans forget, our history, and other guests have made this point. Cameron Joseph, who was just here from the New York Daily News, mentioned his family, Jewish. Some of his family fleeing the Holocaust were not allowed in this country at the time, right? After the fall of the Soviet Empire, people fleeing communism, a lot of Americans didn't want them in at the time.
Right.
We rounded up the Japanese Americans during World War II.
Hating refugees is as American as apple pie.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Isn't that sad?
Yeah, it's very sad.
So there's this sort of xenophobia that or racism that pops up every once in a while, and
we're not alone, by the way. I mean, the xenophobia in Europe is even crazier, which is what Hollande did, announcing he was still going to take these people, which is so incredible to me.
You talk about political backbone and someone making a stand.
Yeah,
like that was an impressive thing for him to do.
Yeah, I mean the Europeans all hate each other, and I'm a testament to that, basically.
Yeah, right. Oh
Yeah.
no, I mean when the former Yugoslavia broke up, I mean the hatred between, and which. I mean, the way I see it, I'm interested in your take. When Tito, dictator that he was alive, I mean, he sort of kept all of that hatred kind of down. I mean, there were Serbs marrying Croats, there were Croats living in Serbia, I'm sure in Bosnia,
my
all
parents,
over, right?
My father is Serbian, my mother is Bosnian, basically.
There you go. Yeah.
No,
but that hatred erupted after he was gone. And
it was always there. He just kept the lid on it, basically. He had there was such a cult of personality around him.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing old literature going back to Bosnia. It was all about him. It was a mini. I don't want to compare him to North Korea's leader or something like that, but it was all about him. So that kind of kept these tensions down at the bottom level. But
so I hope you don't object to this question. Are you a Muslim?
I'm not.
You're not?
No. A lot of my family is. My father comes from a Christian background. My mother comes from a Muslim background. I was always kind of in the middle, and they never, pushed me either way, one way or the other. Yeah.
Because the obvious question is the hatred is mainly directed against not just refugees, but the fact that these are Muslim refugees, right?
Right.
And that's what you see in Europe as well.
Yeah. No. Entirely true. And to say that Muslims are the only ones, committing these evil acts. I mean, look at Dylan Roof.
Yeah, no, it's the craziest thing.
Look at Dylan Roof in South Carolina. So it's complicated.
Or Timothy McVeigh. I mean, you could go down the list.
Yeah, right.
Well, again, we're at a pivotal moment here. I think this is an extremely important debate, and you can see the frustration in President Obama. Even having to deal with this. Right.
Yeah, I think he castigated Republicans for popping off in Turkey and in the Philippines earlier this week. And the reaction was, why is he being so mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
Why the tone? What's with the tone, Mr. President?
Yeah, God, we can say these terrible, terrible things, but how dare you criticize us for doing so? But anyhow, Igor, what a powerful story. So glad that you're here, and thank you for making us a better country, and thank you for making us a better show and coming in today.
Thanks for allowing me to talk about it.
All right, HuffingtonPost.com, where you can follow Igor's good work. I'll be back with a quick parting shot.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is the Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show, every day covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. We started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide, reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show. The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is The Bill Press Show.
Well, listening to all the Republican rhetoric about refugees, here's what I wish. I wish they cared as much about American victims of gun violence as these Republicans do about Syrian refugees. Why is it that very same people who demand thorough background checks on each and every Syrian refugee oppose background checks for anybody buying a gun? And why is it they raise such an alarm about a terrorist organization that sent jihadists in to kill 129 people in Paris, yet they do nothing about the fact that over 10,000 people are killed every year by gun violence in this country? Background checks for refugees, yes, but background checks for guns, they ought to have them too. And we ought to act something to do something about the gun violence on the streets of America. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Have a great Thursday. Come back and see us again tomorrow.
This is the Bill Press Show.